All right, so here we are at the end of week 6, starting into our next round of code reviews. So I am, end of week 6, beginning of week 7. So this is your attendance for this week, and we are in this week doing our learn together, right? And then hopefully this is the week I'm going to see some of you so that we can chat about the code that you've written. A word though before we get started into that on what was covered in last night's code up. The concepts last night in the code up for, especially for the arrays, which is really what this code up was about, and learning how to search them, learning how to iterate over them, learning how to manipulate them, right? How to build an array from code, and then sorting, right? So these are things, and this is probably one of the last things I'll add to the develop it, is having, let me move back here, right, at least one, and I would suspect you're more involved, develop it 2, right, so we're taking both of your develop it 1 programs and we're placing them in this new way of understanding code of objects, arrays, and loops. So I am working on today, and I'm going to probably record tomorrow, my second application, because in the video that's here I went over the first one. That was, it was fun for me to do. It was good for me to do. But what I realized is that I really did need to cover this idea of using these array objects. So just FYI, just a peek at what I've got so far. So this is my kitty cat game. And what I ended up doing here was I created an object just for game actions that is like, randomly get, compare, and then look up. And then I broke it down into player actions, and this is where I would check if the user exists. And then I would add the game into, and this is what you'll see next is another object. And then I display games for a specific user. And so in this case I used some of the techniques that he had, and I used a find and a filter, right? And to understand the difference between when you're doing a find, and actually I had a great discussion today with one of the students that called me and asked for a little more time for me to go through this idea of multiple returns, and it's really good to understand, right? So when you get a match, right? So we're iterating over, I'm passing it this new object called gameplay, and this is a track of all the users and the date they played and the result, and either what they won or lost, not a big deal. In this case, definitely more information I'd want later. But in this case, I'm iterating over, and I'm looking, I'm looking at each game. And in this case, I didn't use the index, so I could actually just drop that out. Right, and then if I find the user, and this is just looking to see if this user exists in my, because I'm looking through each of my games. Now there's other ways I could have done this, but I'm just saying if the game.username, and that is, it's looking at each game, and I recommend this actually if you're not sure what's going on here, right? And we could talk about debugging, and there's other better ways to do this, but for now, with our level of where we're at, just actually look at what it's looking at. It is actually going to look at each game, and if it doesn't find anything, then it's going to return and it'll be undefined. But if it finds something, then that's what's going to get returned, right? So in this case we see 2 returns because that is what the code wants. That is what the code is its logic is doing. It's like, if I find a match, then I'll return that, otherwise I return undefined because I didn't find anything, right? So in this case, if I run my code, right, so now this is actually the output of this first one, right? So actually I'm checking to see if they exist. I'm passing in the gameplay object, actually array, and it's an array of objects, and each game is an object in this case. And that's the method that I have, right? So I'm going to finish this. I'm not quite done with it, but I am going to then, that will be, and I'm just giving you a little preview, that will be my second video here, going over how to, now that I've added these array methods for filtering and finding things, I would want, and I will just have one final update to the requirements, that you have at least one method that uses some of these more involved or higher order, what we call a higher order method that that you use in your code. Okay. All right, let's see if there's anything else. I don't think so, but you know, great time to be asking me questions. Great time to come see me next week, because you know, that way we can look at your code, give you suggestions. Again, I know I'm repeating myself here, but sometimes that's what it takes to kind of, because there's so much information coming at you. I am considering on our next code up to have a little bit of a change, because I'm getting concerned you're not spending enough time on that code up to really benefit from the knowledge, but I'll let you know more about that later. All right, so look for a video from me about my second program that I'm doing for Develop It 2 as an example when I finish it, which I'm getting pretty close. All right, talk to you later.